they think, oh, well, this was like a big step up that you went to ESPN. In fact, it was a major pay cut.
Laura Rutledge is a sports journalist who you can find on ESPN and the SEC Network. She's a Florida girl who's also a new mom, and I'm so excited that you made time to talk with me. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited about this.
So I wanted to get into some sports news and kind of talking about everything that's going on in the world right now. Obviously, the Black Lives Matter movement is huge, and it's making an impact right in sports, specifically in college football, since that's like, you know, your bread and butter. I wanted to talk to you about Kylin Hill, who said he won't be playing this season if Mississippi doesn't change its flag. What do you think about that?
I'm so impressed by Kylin Hill, and I always have been, but to see him come out with a strong statement that there are so many others that feel that way, but maybe didn't have the courage to come out and say what he said and to make such a strong stance. And I think that they're going to have to pay attention to him, and it's a shame that they haven't already. It's a shame that in 2020 we're still having these discussions, but they are so incredibly important. And I think that his leadership and his courage that he's showing right now is just another part of who he is that maybe people didn't realize, maybe people didn't know about. And so I expect for him to be fully supported by his team and by his coaches and everything. And then it's got to continue to go on up from there, and they need to listen to him. So I think he's sufficiently gotten a lot of people's attention, which was, I'm sure, his goal, but now the actual change needs to happen.
Right. And what do you think is a good way for people in the media, for journalists and women journalists and white people and everyone to be supportive of movements like this and to be supportive of being an ally, to be an ally?
Yeah, you know, I'm still trying to learn the best possible way to be an ally myself. And I think one of the things that's been so beneficial about this time is just listening. And look, I'll be the first to say, I have privilege to be able to listen and not to have experienced it myself. You know, I'm lucky that all I need to do is listen, and then of course make actions and make change in the ways that I can. And I think, you know, that's just me from my personal situation. But there are so many other people that have different parts in all of this. And I think as white people, you know, what we're seeing right now is that really it's the white people that need to make the change. You know, this has been a movement for so long, and it's just embarrassing that it's something that keeps going on. And my goodness, that people keep having to die for it. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous and so heartbreaking. And so I think what we're seeing, at least from the journalist standpoint, is that, you know, this is shining a light on something that needs to be spotlighted and needs to be changed. And that's where our role comes into play. And I think that, you know, it's navigating a lot of different things, because you hear so many people that say, well, just stick to sports. But, you know, the people that say that maybe aren't realizing that these guys that are and girls that are playing in these different sports, we're talking about their dads, their brothers, their uncles, maybe even themselves, who have experienced these horrible acts of racism and you know, all of this. And that's where I think it's just wrong to say, stick to sports. And I'm somebody that will continue, and I will continue to make this pledge that I will continue to work to try and help as much as possible. And I think the biggest thing right now is just continuing to elevate these voices that need to be heard, and continue to shine a light on things, and just not saying, okay, well, that news cycle is over, let's move on to the next thing. I think it's a commitment to change long term, and a commitment to listening in how we can make that change.
Very well said. Very well said. All right, let's move on talking about you, all of the amazing things that you've been able to do. So I'll start with when you were a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh my goodness, that, you know, no one ever asked me that question. It's really funny because my family always makes fun of me for this. For a while, I wanted to be a marine biologist, and I was really intense on that. And so I would always go and snorkel with my brothers, and, you know, we would always play at the beach. And so I thought, well, I'm going to be a marine biologist. Well, then I decided that I wanted to be a meteorologist. So I was obsessed with the weather. I really grew up like the local forecast on the 8s was what I lived for, watching the Weather Channel all the time. I realized when I got to college even that I wanted to do something in communication, but in the middle of all that, I had developed a really intense ballet career that was important to me too. So I kind of thought I was going to do that for a while, and I played a lot of musical instruments. All this to say, I did not think that I wanted to do what I ended up doing, and it's just been so many doors have been open, but also a lot of hard work and a lot of just the grace of God through all this to get to this point. And I am just forever thankful for every single step of the way, because as weird as it sounds, I think, you know, my interest in television, even though it was meteorology, my interest in how people were on TV, and then also radio at the time when I was little, and then performing from a ballet standpoint, and the commitment to striving for perfection that you're really never going to get to. All of these things and the hard work that was put in there kind of laid a groundwork for at least how I would be in this business, which would be really committed to getting better every day and working really hard, and all of those things that I think, you know, have led to where I am now. But I don't know. I still, people that knew me as a kid are like, wait, what do you do? That's not what we would have thought you would have done. And I did, you know, sort of chance into this career when I was in college as a freshman, just looking for an internship, and found that the radio station on campus would pay me $6 an hour to go up and be on the radio. And I thought, well, you know, I like radio. And they said there's one opening and it's in sports. And I was like, okay, that sounds great. I like sports too. And I was terrible. But, you know, that's really where it all started.
Wow. Okay, let's back up. So you're from St. Petersburg, Florida, correct?
So I spent a lot of time there, but I'm actually from Atlanta. And
Okay.
I grew up in Atlanta, and my whole, my parents still live there, and we have a lot of family there. But you are correct that I spent a lot of time in the state of Florida. And so St. Pete was one of the stops on my time in Florida.
Nice. My mom is from St. Pete.
Oh,
So I spent a lot of summers there as well.
yes,
Very
best.
small town. Yeah. It's nice and hot. And then you went to University of Florida.
I did.
And what did you study when you were a freshman, or when you first got there?
So when I first got there, I declared just like a general communications major, and then I decided I really wanted to do telecommunication, but wanted to do sports. And their degree at the time, you could either do telecommunication, news, you could do production, and then there was one other one, but they didn't have a sports concentration. So my major was technically telecommunication news, basically broadcast journalism for an on-air concentration. But then I did all my sports stuff kind of extra. And now University of Florida has since added a journalism concentration that is sports-based, which would have come in handy. But I really am glad that my schooling was all in news. So investigative journalism and obviously the TV side of things and all of that. I think it really helped me. Had I just been focused on sports, I don't know that I would have had as strong of a foundation in journalism as I got from UF.
Right. And how important do you think that is when you're telling these stories?
I think it's really important. You know, it was funny because when I was in college, my professors were always like, can you just do one serious story one time news? Because I would be like, oh, okay, my TV package today is going to be on National Peanut Butter and Jelly Day, because I was so committed to, I want to do sports and I don't want to do news. But I ended up, you know, through their encouragement and through some of the great people that poured so much into me when I was in college, I realized, all right, I do need to probably buckle down here a little bit and really kind of develop this foundation. And I found that it's been so important because even though what I do, you know, as a sideline reporter may not necessarily be investigative journalism, or what I do hosting a show may be totally different, it's still a skill set that comes in handy so often. And I think either way, like whatever you want to do in this business, if you can have that foundation, it's just a great place to start. And the other thing that really helped me, I had always loved to write growing up, but I was very more along the lines of creative writing. So, you know, not news writing necessarily. And the TV test that you have to take at Florida to even get into the news concentration and all of that was so specific about how to write for news and how to write in headlines that I still, use so much of that in my daily work. And even when people are like, well, you're just talking on TV, which is true, and most of what I do is unscripted anyway, but in your head you're writing. And so having that foundation and having that just kind of come second nature through a lot of work in college, because it didn't come second nature to me to write and think like that, has really helped me.
Wow. So what happened after college? Like, you are on your graduation day, what's next?
So I actually missed graduation because I had already gotten a job as the Tampa Bay Rays reporter. And so this was this story to me, I feel like if I were to tell any story about like just sticking with it and trusting yourself in this business, this would be it. And it happened really early on. But I had tried to get internships, you know, outside of the radio station that I worked for. I had tried to do that throughout college, and I just couldn't get any of the big names. ESPN would not even take a second to talk to me. I couldn't get anybody's attention at any of these other places. I tried CNN, ABC, Fox, everybody, and just could not get an internship. So all my internships were really local, and I did kind of a wide variety of them. But I finally had beat this guy's door down at Fox Sports Florida, because I thought, okay, I'm in the state of Florida, this will be great, you know. And so I finally got this internship there. Well, all I did for the entire summer after my junior year, so leading into my senior year of college, was copy DVDs. I mean, literally all day long, copy DVDs and ate Mike and Ike's. Like, I would eat a pack of Mike and Ike's a day, just copying these stupid DVDs. And I thought, well, this is so bad because I've put so much time in and I've worked so hard and I worked so hard for this internship, and this is just not really, this is like a waste of my time. So I went to them and I said, can I just write you guys? Because I noticed that their website didn't have any new content on it. It was just kind of like sitting there as a website, but there wasn't anything new. I said, can I write you guys position previews for Florida and Florida State football for the upcoming season? So I'll do every single position group, and if you want to run them, you can. If you don't, that's fine. I'm going to write them anyway. So I started doing it, and they had no other content to put on the site, so they put them up. And I think it showed just that I wasn't there just to try and be on TV or whatever. I was really committed to this is how work. Frankly, I really was bored because I'm copying these DVDs all the time. But it led, I think it opened up to just a little bit more of them saying, okay, you know, this is, and the reason I tell this story is definitely not to pat myself on the back. It's more just when you're discouraged, sometimes just finding another door to navigate through will end up leading to success. So I'm going to try to make this story shorter. So then there was this reporter that they had for the pre and post game show for Tampa Bay Rays broadcast on Fox Sports Florida. And she had a conflict with her contract, so she couldn't do some of the home games that they had for the pre and post game show. So randomly, as I'm, you know, in college and getting close to graduation, they're like, hey, we want to hire you to be our reporter on Rays Live pre and post. And I'm like, do you guys realize that I'm not even out of college? You know? And at this point, I had worked really hard to have a niche in college football recruiting. So that was kind of what I mainly did. So I really did not do baseball. And I thought, oh my goodness, you know, I'm going to have to learn how to do this from the ground up. And I really hadn't done live TV. And all of a sudden, I'm thrust into, you know, what really was a relatively big spot as a 22-year-old. I guess I was 22-year-old. And I mean, I will never forget sitting there on opening day on the field and just like sweating through my shirt because I was so nervous. And they're like, hey, can you put your IFB in? The audio person was saying this. I'm Googling what IFB was. I had an IFB. Like, I didn't know. And I mean, it is just remarkable. It was thanks to all those people there that helped me so much that I didn't just totally sink. But anyway, it all sort of, that was my next step out of college. And it all came from, I think, just kind of going the extra mile instead of getting discouraged. And there were many times when I was discouraged and didn't go the extra mile, but this was just one instance where I did, and I think it paid off, and it was a little bit of right place, right time. But that was my first opportunity as a very young person right out of college. At the time, I didn't realize really how young I was to be doing that job, but I now realize that, and I realized that pretty soon after that as well.
Yeah, that's a huge first job, especially not even getting to really graduate yet. And then
I was a mess.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. So how did you make the transition from baseball to doing what you really wanted to do, which was college football?
Yeah, so one of the great things about baseball, and I did that Rays job for 2 years, and then I got an opportunity with the San Diego Padres. And the Padres job was a little bit of a leap of faith because I was 24 at the time, and they were offering, an opportunity to be kind of the main reporter on their games, but also to host some pre and post game shows. And I thought, if I can get experience, doing just this hosting role at such a young age, that's huge. So that's almost worth it in and of itself. So that ended up turning into a lot of different things. And throughout that time, I was just getting so many reps. And I think that's what allowed me to kind of transition to what I really wanted to do a little bit earlier, because at the end of the day, as much as we learn in college and as much as we think we know coming out of college, you just don't know until you do it. And I personally think that you can't really get good at this unless you do it a lot. And that's where, it's Malcolm Gladwell has his great line about 10,000 hours really makes you an expert in something. And so I kind of got my 10,000 hours just by doing baseball. And by that, I mean, just like getting comfortable on TV. My first TV, I mean, I was like holding the microphone with two hands and I'm like doing weird motions and, all these things that, were just a mess. And so I needed the reps. And that's where I think that time really benefited me for those 3 years. So then from there, that's when I found out there was going to be an SEC network in 2014 that was coming. And I thought, okay, this is finally an opportunity. I had done some Big 12 football for Fox. I had done Pac-12. I just had done everything kind of except the SEC since I had been in college. And so I thought, this is my chance to just get my foot back in the door. So when I finally got their attention, which took forever and took so many emails, and I basically given up, they ended up doing an interview. SEC Network and ESPN interviewed me in the Atlanta airport. And I really think it's just because they thought I was crazy and they felt bad for me because I had But anyway, we don't stalk people. I didn't do that, but in case anybody out there is like, oh, okay, this is the key to getting a job, is just sending incessant emails. Anyway, they finally met with me and they hired me for a role on SEC Network, which, like I said, I had all but given up on. I had already decided I was going to take a job with CNN International and do a totally different route, which is not really what I wanted to do, international sports. But anyway, it was a chance to kind of start back in the SEC and get really into college football, but it was a major step back from what I had been doing. And so I think it's funny, like a lot of people, if they look at how I got to where I've gotten, they think, oh, well, this was like a big step up that you went to ESPN. In fact, it was a major pay cut, and it was kind of a risk at the time because I was leaving a great job and great security with Fox Sports and with San Diego and all that, to come in and kind of take a risk on myself. And at the time I thought, okay, I'm 25. There's no other time that I can do this in my career where I just say, I'm going to give up a great opportunity to try and go do, what I wanted to do. And so I think when you look at people in this business and in a lot of businesses, a lot of times when things start to change for them is when they either like take a gamble on themselves or kind of bet on themselves or take that leap of faith risk, which is really scary. And there were so many moments where I thought I made a mistake. I should have just stayed over there and done the Fox Sports thing. It would have been comfortable. I would have been doing all of these, great things and like living in San Diego instead of, schlepping around and trying to earn my way and build my way up at ESPN. But in reflection, it really was the right thing to do. So that was really kind of how I was able to transition back to doing what I wanted to.
Wow. What would you tell yourself now? What would you tell yourself then? Like the person that was very apprehensive about this huge decision that she just made.
I would have been like, girl, you're going to be fine. You need to just calm down, and I would have told myself that so many times even before that too, because I put so much pressure on myself in college that, I look back and I'm like, man, I didn't even enjoy my college experience because the whole time I was like, well, I have to wake up at 3 a.m. to, go work on the radio, which I think it's good to have something like that, but you also want to just try and have more balance. I'm still trying to figure out the whole balance thing. But, I also would have told myself to just be patient with where I'm at in each step of this whole journey. And I think it's really hard to just be where your feet are it's something that actually Maria Taylor, I think, does such a good job of reminding me of and reminding other people of. She has always said that comparison is the thief of joy. And I believe that's somebody else's quote, but I always attribute it to her anyway. It's a great quote, and it's a great thing to keep in our minds, because I think I spent a lot of time comparing and saying, well, I need to be doing this, or I'm not doing enough. And, you know, and really it's fine. Like whatever you are doing is enough, and you are enough. And those are some of the things that I wish I would have known and accepted during those times, because I look back and think, you know, as much as I thought I was ready for whatever the next thing was, I really probably wasn't ready yet. And I really needed, you know, this whole other extra experience. There was one time when I was still working for Fox Sports pretty early on in my career, and they were trying to put Twitter on TV. I mean, now this seems like, oh my goodness, you know, duh, you put those things on TV. But this was the first time that people really were doing that. And it was for this Pac-12 men's basketball tournament. They were doing this whole big thing, and I was going to be their social media reporter. And they put me in this big spot. It was really the biggest spot that I had been in so far. And I wasn't ready for it. And I really crashed and burned pretty bad. I'm glad that, I mean, I don't know, you can probably still find the footage, but I was so nervous, and it was really not good, and it wasn't executed well. And most of it was my fault. But after the first day, I stayed up all night crying about it. And I was just beating myself up. And I said, this career is not for me. This is just not going to work for me. I was probably 23 maybe. So like right at the beginning of my career, almost gave up right then and there, and just thought, I don't want to do this. My eyes were so swollen the next day that I couldn't even they couldn't even zoom in on my camera shot, because I was so upset, and I just couldn't stop. You know, I was just really beating myself up. And now I look back and think, okay, that really was an example of a time that I wasn't ready for that next step. And I think there could have been a lot more of those times. And so just trying to be where your feet are and be satisfied with that, and use any time that you have to just get better, so that whenever the next opportunity comes, because it will come, you are so ready for that, and you're even more prepared than you thought you should be.
Yeah, that is really great advice. And that kind of like is really speaking to me personally, because I like kind of how you were talking about earlier about all of these, you know, these different things in life that come up, and you think you're ready and you're really not. Like I had made it to the second round of the ESPN rotational program interviews, and I made it to the second round of the NFL rotational interviews, and I didn't get either of them. And I was just ready to be like, you know, maybe I should just like, I don't know, like I should just do something else. And then I just found out like earlier, maybe last week, that I got the ESPN internship for this summer. And I'm so excited. And
I was about to say, girl, if they don't hire you, then I'm going to contact somebody. So I'm really glad that you just said that.
But it really speaks to what you said, because another opportunity will come. You have to be where your feet are and believe in yourself, and believe that whatever, and like you're a woman of faith, I am too, that wherever God wants you to be is where you will be. And that's just that. There's nothing you can do about it that's going to change wherever that's supposed to be.
You just gave me chills. That's so true. And as much as we think we know, we don't know. and I honestly look back and say so many thank you prayers that I wasn't where I thought I needed to be, because if it was up to me, I would have crashed and burned long before this point, you know, because I just wasn't ready. And he knew that, and other people knew that. And just, I think if you can find a way to be at peace with that, which it's not always that easy, it's much easier said than done. But if you can just keep reminding yourself of that, you find a way to, I think, be a lot better at this job too.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, back to finding balance. So now you're in your mid-20s. What are you doing in your personal life to find balance? Because I don't know when you met your husband and all of these things.
Yeah, so Josh and I met really early on. Like I believe we were 22, because it was 2011. So as all this is happening in both of our careers, shout out to Josh, that's his he was a Major League Baseball player. And actually, when we met, he was a minor league baseball player. And so, you know, he was doing that. I was chasing this sports broadcasting dream. And then, you know, he got called up to the big leagues, and I was doing my thing. We were just kind of all over the place. And then when he proposed and it was like, okay, now we're going to get married and we're going to do all this, that was really another part of my decision to say, well, I'm not going to keep going on with Fox Sports San Diego because that's not going to work for us. He can't be out in San Diego when he's got to be all these other places for baseball and for his career. And so that's another thing where at the time I really blamed getting married on, you know, not being able to do what my career wanted to do, which is so wrong. And I wish that I could change those feelings, and I wish I could change some of the things I said to him at the time, because I was so frustrated with just like me wanting to make this life decision, but then it not falling in line with my career. I think what I learned and what I would say to especially young women in this business is do your life first. Like, this job will follow. Things will fall into place. Eventually, you will find opportunities that you never thought you would find. You will hit some low points along the way, but your life and your foundation in your home is so incredibly important, and your family, not just whoever you marry or whoever you're with or whatever it is, but also like your parents and whoever is close to you, your friends, all these things. You will never get that time back, and you'll probably sit there and say, okay, well, I did all this work, but you know, now what do I have? And so I think just focusing on that first, and it's hard to do because it's never, I don't think it's ever a true balance. Like, I don't think you can really chase one or the other. So you just have to say before I go for this, it's okay if I say, let me do my life first and let me do my life at the same time. And that it's something that I'm always still trying to figure out, especially, you know, now with Reese, which is a whole other part of life. But at that time, that was it. And so, you know, in my mid-20s, I really was kind of grappling with, all right, so I got married and now I'm having this big career change and really, like I said, taking a step back, you know, taking a much smaller contract and trying to fight my way back up. And through that time too, I mean, we had just gotten married and Josh was still playing. I was supposed to be kind of where he was full time, which was in Denver at the time when he was playing for the Rockies. But I ended up really going back and forth a ton, because anytime that ESPN would let me do anything, I mean, whether it was like gymnastics or which all these sports I ended up just falling in love with them, but it wasn't what I was initially hired to do. But I felt so much pressure to say, well, I've got to climb my way up, so I've got to keep proving myself. And he was wonderfully patient during that time too, to just say, yeah, you know what, go do your thing. And I'll be here when you get back and all of that. And so that's really, I think, what also allowed me to really chase all those dreams too at the time.
Wow. A good support system is critical.
If someone's not going to support you, don't even go down that path, because there are so many people but you know in your gut, okay, this person is not going to really be supportive of me. That's not going to work. Right. That's my one other piece of advice.
Yeah, that's important. That's so important.
It is.
That's so important. Okay, let's talk about your job right now. You have some really cool co-stars and really cool people that you interview. What's that about?
Oh my goodness. I love everything that I get to do. And I sit here all the time and just like pinch myself. I can't believe that I get to work with these people. And I know sometimes, and everything's been so different right now, and we all miss each other so much, obviously. And I think we're just going to be so excited to get back together whenever we can, that we'll probably just be crazy on TV, and people at home are going to be like, what's going on with him? But you know, that's one of the things that I've loved about this business and this job, is just being able to just build these incredible relationships with people that I would have never probably even met otherwise. And they've become my closest friends. I mean, Paul Feinbaum, Marcus Spears, Ryan Clark, Dan Orlovsky, the list goes on and on. And Maria Taylor, who is one of my closest friends. So many of these people who I just treasure, and I will treasure for the rest of my life. And so I think that my favorite part of the job and all the shows that I do and the games and whatever it is just that camaraderie and being with all of them, and then also finding ways to entertain and make really good TV for the people at home, which ultimately is our most important audience and who we care the most about. And so it's going to be interesting to see what it looks like when football comes back, and how we how we navigate through all of that, but I'm excited for that challenge. And I think, even during this time, trying to find ways to make unique content when there hasn't been anything going on, and finding ways to, just say, hey, look, to the fans at home, we're kind of in this with you. I mean, we are in this with you. So what can we bring you that would maybe be a slight distraction or something to bring a smile to your face on a daily basis? And I've been really just thankful to work with the team of people that we have that's coming up with those ideas all the time to try and entertain right now.
Yeah, very cool. Have you had a moment where you're like, okay, I've made it, like this is it, like I've made it?
Oh no, I feel like I'm always so afraid to ever let myself feel that way, because I'm like, no, you have so far to go. I do think that I've done a bad job of like really just soaking in those times when it's like, wow, can you even believe that you got here? Truly, when I was in college and I realized that this was what I wanted to do, I just wanted to be the radio sideline reporter for Florida football games. I thought, if I can do that, I've made it. Like that just seemed like the ultimate to me. So all this has just been like a blessing on top of another blessing, and I can't even believe that it's even happened. But I do think that probably one of the first times that I really, felt that was the national championship that was in San Francisco 2 years ago, the one where Trevor Lawrence went absolutely nuts on Alabama, and still to this day, it's one of the best performances I've ever seen one person do. I thought it would be for a long time until Joe Burrow did what he did last year. But anyway, we were sitting there on the set pregame, and I had hosted SEC Nation by that point, a couple years, but I always, I think, had been so, just trying to do everything right, trying to be right where I needed to be on everything. And so I wouldn't ever have a moment to just take a breath, look around and be like, wow, this is cool. And so in the middle of one of the shows, I can still visualize exactly where we were on the field. And it was when Clemson ran out of the tunnel, and it was just loud and crazy in there. And I was sort of letting it breathe and not saying anything. And I just thought, I looked around and I thought, I cannot believe I'm sitting on this set right here. As much as I try really hard to never make things about being a woman, but like, as a woman, everybody else on the set's a man. Most of the people, on this field broadcasting right now also happen to be men. We've got some great women, and we continue to grow the game that way. But this was a set full of men, and I was the only woman sitting there, and I was, traffic copping everybody through it. And I thought, I cannot believe that this is what I'm doing. I mean, it is crazy. And so while, like I said, I'm always hesitant to say that I've made it or anything like that, but that was just one of those really thankful moments of, I cannot even believe that I'm here right now.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. That sounds really cool. And I remember when I interviewed Joy Taylor, she was like, and when I first started doing Girls of the Game, I asked, what's it like, being a woman in this industry and all of that. But then after I interviewed her and she talked, she's like, I hate that because, like, I'm just doing what I do. And you were an athlete before you even thought you wanted to be a sports journalist. So being a woman is something that definitely makes you different from everyone else. But at the end of the day, you're a sports journalist, and that's awesome. Like, that's incredible.
That's really well said. And I think more and more, and you're going to be a big part of this too, with your generation of female broadcasters in sports. It's more just that, we're just doing this. We're just, we're out here, we're journalists, we are providing content, we're interviewing, we're doing all these things and opinions. And that's where I think we need to see more change. I think we've gotten to the point where it's now pretty mainstream to see a woman broadcasting sports. Now let's get the opinions. I mean, all of us have them. We have so many things that we want to share and so much wisdom to share and just a different perspective. And so that's what I hope by the time you are starring on all of these networks, that things have changed to that point where it's about you sharing your opinions and really letting your personality grow on camera too. Yeah,
that's a very exciting opportunity and idea to think that will happen soon.
Yeah,
that'll happen soon. What do you want your legacy to be? I know you have a child now, And I feel like that question adds some new weight when you're a mom. So
Yes.
what do you want your legacy to be?
Especially as a mom of a girl, I feel like, you know, just trying to raise a really strong, confident woman is a part of at least my personal legacy. I hope that when people see Reese, that's what's reflected in her. But I really think that for me, something that, you know, I just hope that, and whether this is my legacy or just how people feel about me, I just always want people to feel that I care about them. And even if I can't physically know them or, you know, even know who they are, this is something that is always what I hope comes through the screen, is that I care and that I want people to be happy and want people to be okay, and that I'm going to give as much of myself as I possibly can to get to that point. And I'm very aware that, like, relatively soon or whenever, you know, I'm going to be old news, and that's totally fine by me. I love doing this and I love this business, but I truly cannot wait for the next group to come in and for all of you to take my job and to, you know, come through and make your mark on this. And I think that's going to give me great joy. So making sure that people know that I care about them, and then also teaching and lending a helping hand to the next group coming forward. I hope that's how people reflect on my career down the road.
I definitely don't think you're going to be old news anytime soon. You're amazing. Thank you so much for being on Girls of the Game. I had an amazing time talking with you.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm so excited that you're going to be an intern with ESPN, and that means that we'll get to talk a lot more.